Human civilization has existed for more than 5,000 years. Dynasties have come and gone. Great kingdoms once stood tall, and over time, they evolved into the nations we know today. The journey of humanity has been filled with brilliance, discoveries, and technological advancements. We've lived through golden ages of extraordinary achievements. Technology has grown at an incredible pace. But behind all of that, human civilization has also gone through dark times where people struggled against nature and fought deadly diseases that we now consider as common illnesses. Do you know what those diseases are? Yup. Let's talk about them in this video. Before we get into the core of the video, I kindly ask you to subscribe so this channel can grow and continue to deliver better, higher quality content in the future. Okay, today, these diseases may be seen as men or even often ignored. But in history, they were plagues, disasters for the civilizations of the past. These are the 7 diseases that once became catastrophic for human civilization. Let's start with the first one, the Spanish flu, or what we now simply call the flu, influenza. Imagine this. One disease killed more people than World War I, and it was just the flu. In 1918, the world had just come out of a devastating war. But something even deadlier came quietly starting with a small cough and a mild fever. It first appeared in a military camp in Kansas, United States. But it was called the Spanish flu because Spanish media were the first to honestly report it. The virus spread rapidly across the globe, Asia, Europe, Africa, and South America. The death toll? Over 50 million lives lost. Some even claim it could be as high as 100 million. Insane. More than the casualties of the war itself. Hospitals were overcrowded, doctors were exhausted, and bodies piled up in the streets. What made it even scarier? This flu didn't just attack the elderly. It hit young adults and healthy people just as hard. Every breath could have been your last. Back then, there was no cure. No antibiotics. Vaccines? Still just a dream. But from that moment on, scientists around the world began the hunt for a solution. Decades later, the first flu vaccine was created in the 1940s. One of the greatest breakthroughs in human civilization. And now, we have seasonal vaccines, though the virus keeps mutating. We live in a time where the seasonal flu can be controlled. There's medicine. There's a vaccine. The flu that once could wipe out entire cities now just needs some restand. A box of tissues. Let's move on to number 2, measles. Once, a single red spot could bury an entire village. And yes, it was just measles. Before the 1960s, measles was a global nightmare. Not just about fever and rashes, this disease silently killed millions of children. Measles was first recorded in the 9th century, but it became a major epidemic in the 19th century. The symptoms looked ordinary. Fever, cough, rash. But underneath, the victim's immune system could be completely wiped out. Secondary infections like pneumonia and diarrhea claimed countless lives. The peak was in 1958, over 750,000 cases in the United States alone. Globally, each year, 2.6 million deaths from measles, and most of them were children. The turning point came in 1963, when Dr. John Enders discovered the measles vaccine. And from that moment, the world changed. By the year 2000, WHO reported a 74% drop in measles-related deaths thanks to vaccination. And now, measles is still contagious, but it's preventable. One small injection saves millions of lives. Number 3, this one disease killed more people than all the wars of the 20th century combined. Its name is smallpox, and its impact was massive. Blistering skin, burning fevers, and then death. Smallpox first appeared thousands of years ago. From ancient Egypt to the Roman Empire, this disease hunted humans mercilessly. The fatality rate, up to 30%, and the survivors often left blind or severely scarred. In the 1500s, the disease conquered continents. When European explorers brought smallpox to the Americas, millions of native people died. More than 90% of the population was wiped out, not by weapons, but by a virus. Then came 1796. A doctor named Edward Jenner discovered the vaccine. And that moment marked the beginning of the end. Through massive global vaccination, smallpox became the first disease ever eradicated from Earth. In 1980, the WHO declared the world free of smallpox. A historic victory in human medical history. Number 4. Back then, coughing blood meant you were counting your final days. And that was tuberculosis. Once the most brutal killer on Earth, they called it the White Plague. TB attacks the lungs and spreads through the air. It's been around since ancient Egyptian mummies had it. But in the 19th century, it turned into a global nightmare. Every year, millions coughed until their lungs gave out. In Europe, 1 in 7 people died from TB. Even legends like Chopin and Kafka were taken by it. A cure? There wasn't one. Patients were isolated in sanatoriums, hoping that fresh air alone could save them. Then came the turning point. In 1943, streptomycin was discovered, the first antibiotic that worked against TB, and the world finally took a breath of relief. But the story isn't over. TB still kills 1.3 million people every year. The difference is, now we know how to fight it. With regular treatment and early detection, this disease is no longer a death sentence. Number 5. This disease made people go insane, rot alive, and suffer lifelong social punishment. Melting faces, damaged brains, crumbling bones. And back then, there was no cure. Its name is syphilis, one of the deadliest and most shameful diseases in human history. It used to feel like a curse, creeping in silently, and then destroying everything. And the craziest part, many famous historical figures suffered from it. The first recorded outbreak hit Europe in 1495. French troops attacked Naples, Italy, and brought something back home. In no time, syphilis spread like wildfire. It started with a small sore on the genitals, but that was just the beginning. Stage 2, full body rashes. Stage 3, welcome to hell. The brain slowly deteriorates. Paranoia, hallucinations, facial bones collapse, noses rot, teeth fall out, faces literally decay. Now imagine going through all that without medical knowledge, watching your body rot away piece by piece without knowing why. And ironically, the cure back then? Mercury. Yes, the toxic metal, which only sped up death. Some historians believe Beethoven, Van Gogh, even Napoleon may have had syphilis. King Henry VIII? Likely too. It hit everyone from peasants to kings. In 1905, scientists finally identified the culprit, a bacteria called Treponema pallidum. And then, in 1943, the savior arrived. Penicillin, the first antibiotic powerful enough to kill it. Today, syphilis still exists, but it's no longer a death sentence. With fast treatment and modern medicine, one shot can save a life. What used to be a curse is now just a cure away. That's the power of science. Before we move on to number 6, hit that subscribe and like button, brozo. You don't miss more mind-blowing history facts. Let's keep going. Number 6. Once upon a time, one virus paralyzed children for life. The world trembled. But today, it's almost gone. Polio was no ordinary disease. It came quietly and left scars that lasted forever. But the fight against it became one of the greatest victories in medical history. It first appeared in the United States in 1894, but it reached its peak in the early 20th century. In 1952, the U.S. faced its worst polio outbreak. 58,000 cases, 3,000 deaths, and thousands of children left permanently paralyzed. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and everywhere, parents lived in fear. What made it terrifying? Polio attacked the central nervous system, and in just hours it could cripple a child for life. Imagine this. In the morning, they were playing soccer. By evening, they couldn't walk. Then came the breakthrough. In 1955, a scientist named Jonas Salk introduced the first polio vaccine, and the world began to change. Parents wept not from fear, but finally, from hope. Then in 1961, Albert Sabin improved it with an oral vaccine easier to give. Mass immunization campaigns rolled out across nations. The results? Incredible. Polio, once humanity's nightmare, began to vanish. From millions of cases a year to just dozens. In 1988, there were 350,000 cases across 125 countries. But today, fewer than 10 cases per year worldwide. Almost entirely thanks to vaccines. What was once a nightmare is now just a story. But remember, this story proves that science and solidarity can save the world. Number 7. This virus didn't come from humans, but from a tiny mosquito that could turn a fever into death. Dengue fever isn't just another disease. It strikes silently in tropical regions, and when it hits, it can cripple an entire city's hospitals. Its history runs deep. The first recorded outbreaks were in 1780 across Asia, Africa, and North America. But back then, people had no idea what caused it. It wasn't until the early 20th century that scientists finally uncovered the truth. The culprit was a tiny mosquito, Aedes aegypti. This little insect carries the dengue virus, and all it takes is one bite to spread it. It doesn't kill instantly, but the symptoms? Brutal. Sudden high fever, intense muscle and joint pain, skin rashes, and worst of all, internal bleeding. That's why it earned the name breakbone fever, because it feels like your bones are shattering. Year after year, outbreaks became more frequent, especially in Southeast Asia and Latin America. In 1968, Southeast Asia reported its first major dengue outbreak. Today, it's a seasonal threat, claiming thousands of lives every rainy season. But here's the good news. Even though there's still no cure, dengue can be prevented. From destroying mosquito breeding grounds, to fogging, to vaccines like Dengvaxia, humanity is fighting back. And the most powerful weapon? Awareness. Because this mosquito doesn't need a flood. Just a small puddle the size of a bottle cap, and an outbreak can begin. The virus hasn't disappeared. But today, we're more prepared than ever. And this fight against dengue fever is proof. That knowledge can defeat the invisible. These were 7 diseases that once devastated humanity. Terrifying, deadly, and at times unstoppable. They showed us how weak we could be, but also how strong we could become. Because human history isn't just about wars or inventions. It's about our fight against the things we can't see, like disease, from smallpox that wiped out millions in the Americas, to measles that used to kill children every season, syphilis haunting Europe during the Renaissance, and dengue, polio, and tuberculosis, lurking quietly inside the human body. For centuries, humanity seemed fragile. No weapons, no cures, just hope. But somehow, we survived. We learned. We discovered a mold called penicillium. That turned out to be the world's first real weapon against infections. We figured out how to wrap a virus in a vaccine so the body could fight back. And most of all, we proved that time isn't our enemy. It's a tool for understanding. Then came 2019, the peak of everything we've been preparing for. A virus the world had never seen before, spreading silently from a city in China. Its name, COVID-19. Within months, everything changed. Airports were empty. Schools were shut down. Cities fell silent. Hospitals overflowed. And fear became the new currency. But this time, humanity moved fast. Scientists across the globe didn't sleep. Data was shared. Research was open. And within less than a year, The first vaccine was born, not a miracle, a result of centuries of trial, error, and perseverance. As the world began to recover, one truth became clear. We can't stop viruses, but we can move faster than ever before. Today, Colorado COVID-19 is no longer the nightmare it once was. We have medicine. We have vaccines. We have normal life back. And, more importantly, we now understand the true value of science and collaboration. Yes, there are still diseases without a cure. HIV, AIDS, ALS, certain types of cancer, Alzheimer's. But history already proved, if we once defeated smallpox, polio, and COVID, we can find a way forward again. So if sometimes it feels like the world is getting darker, remember this: humans aren't the strongest species, but we are the most relentless. And relentlessness is the power that saves the world. This has been a long journey through humanity's fight against disease. Drop a comment below if there's any illness you think we missed. Let's learn together. Thank you for watching. This was Past in Seconds.